You know, you gotta love these 63-degree February winters. One of the few perks about living out in the desert out here in Arizona. Winters are pretty laid back and cool. You know, I haven't done a hiking video in quite a while, so I decided to come out today since it was such a beautiful day. And this particular trail I'm on, I haven't been on this trail in a few years now. Seems quite different than what I remember it to be, but I can't quite find anything that was familiar the last time I was out here. One thing I noticed is that I'm seeing a whole lot of, well, not a lot, but here and there, I'm seeing tents that are obviously occupied by homeless people. And even like these make ready structures, you know, for people to live in. It's a really sad situation. There's like a ton more garbage and whatnot out here that was never out here before, and it's just a sad situation, man. Just kind of lets me know how fortunate I am, at least for the time being. Hopefully that'll last. As you can see, there's no shortage of mountains to hike around here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. Anyway, let's get to it. Woo! I decided that I would take a hike today and, you know, kind of talk to you guys. I've been getting a lot of messages last 3-4 months with a lot of questions, you know, about the channel and myself, and I decided to do a Q&A, pretty much a real quick Q&A video, and just to answer some of those questions that I've been asked. So I wrote down a few questions. Wow, look at this view. I wrote down a few questions from a viewer, and I think I'm gonna go down here. Man, that is a steep drop off. Can you guys see me? I'm trying to get out of the sun. Let's get over here. Okay, so I'm gonna answer a few questions from a few people that had asked me some stuff about myself and about the channel. And so here we go. Try to make this short and sweet. I had you know, a lot of my videos I talk about some of the people that I've rubbed elbows with, and people I've had the pleasure of meeting, people in the entertainment business, and I've mentioned names here and there, and I've had people ask me about some of these names. One was De La Soul. I had a couple people ask me, you know, how did I get to meet or hang out with De La Soul? Rest in peace to Trugoy, of course. And so, well, let me tell you about that. I've met, now with De La Soul, it's kind of a blur because I've probably been around those guys as far as like actually meeting them maybe 3-4 times over the years, and in different parts of the country. So it's kind of a blur. I'll do the best I can. I think one of those situations was when I was I think I was DJing a De La Soul show, or maybe hosting. I don't quite remember. I was at a De La Soul show, and I got backstage pretty easy, so I must have been working there at some capacity. And I just remember it was like maybe a month before they were going to be performing at the Rock the Bells tour. So I just remember they had just gotten off the stage, and they were all kind of just standing there. And I remember Maceo was sitting, and he was just like pouring with sweat. And I had a record or two that I asked them to autograph, which they did. And then I remember, I didn't keep them long, but I just remember saying, hey, I'll see you guys next month in LA. And they were like, cool, man, we'll see you then. And so that was one time. I do remember meeting Maceo at the Magic Show in Las Vegas. That was early 2000s. There was a few times I just don't remember all of the intimate details. What I will say is the very last time I ran into those guys was at I think it was 2013. Now I've seen those guys, of course, a number of times, but as far as actually, you know, talking to them, having a conversation with them, was 2013 at the Kings of the Mic tour. I don't know if you guys remember that or if you attended that tour, but the Kings of the Mic tour was LL Cool J headlined it, and then there was Ice Cube, De La Soul, and Public Enemy, and they all performed. And when it was in Tucson, Arizona, it wasn't in Phoenix where I'm at, so I had to drive like 2 hours to Tucson. Me and my homeboy who lived in Tucson, we went to the show. And I remember, I didn't quite know what was going on. It was supposed to be at a casino, some casino over there. And I went to go pick up the tickets because I had, you know, I had paid for the tickets previously. And so I got in town maybe around 2 o'clock. And the show wasn't until that night. And I remember when I pulled into the parking lot of, you know, the casino, I could hear this loud music, you know, like a concert music, just boom, 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 you know, and I was like, what's going on? So something was going on, and it definitely was like my kind of music. It wasn't like, you know, some kind of top 40 or something like that, or a band. It was like, boom, boom, boom. It was beats and bass and all of that stuff. So I go inside, I find the ticket counter, I get my tickets, and then I go back out and I get in my car and I'm trying to follow this music. And I was like, did I make a mistake? You know, like, is this some type of, you know, afternoon or daytime concert? Because I would have been really upset if I would have missed it or some of it. So I finally find this area. It's an amphitheater. And so I parked, I hopped out the car, and there was this big, huge wall, you know, that was surrounding it. So I go up to the wall, and I look over the wall. Wow, there's another tent. Wow. I just passed by like 5 tents. So I look over the wall, and I realize I'm all the way on the opposite side from the stage of this amphitheater. And who do I see? Sound checking is LL Cool J. And I'm like, whoa. So I'm like, I gotta get over there. And actually, I got back in my car and I drove closer to where the entrance was. Now, like I said, this is like 2:30, you know, in the afternoon. So security is light and all of that stuff. I was able to go into the front of the venue and walk right through. You know, the gates were wide open. I just walked right in, you know, and walked all the way down the little walkway to the side of the stage, walked up on walked into the backstage area where there was you know, walked past the sound crew, the sound guys and all of that. They just kind of glanced over at me. They didn't pay me any attention. And by the time I got all the way over there, LL Cool J was done sound checking. And I'm just like, where is he? Where is he? Because I never met LL, but I sure wanted to. Big LL fan. So now they're gearing up for Ice Cube to sound check. So I see what was his name? Crazy Tunes, I think, was Ice Cube's DJ at the time. He's gearing up, and the DJs were all up on the lift, and then Z-Trip was still back there doing this thing. And so I'm walking around, and all of a sudden I see Professor Griff from Public Enemy. Wow, man, that was cool. So we're kind of approaching each other, and man, almost before I could say anything, Griff just greeted me, dapped me up, asked me how I was doing. I was like, yo, man, it's a pleasure. I remember telling him, you know, how much I love his YouTube videos and whatnot. And I had never met Griff before. You know, that was my first time meeting Griff, if I remember correctly. And so we say our greetings, and then I go further in the back, into the backstage area. So I eventually go, because all the way in the back, then there's a parking lot back there. So I go and I go to the parking lot. I call my homeboy. I'm like, yo, man, I just walked into the sound check over here at the show, and I'm telling him about all the people that are coming through. And while I'm talking to him, this black Escalade pulls up, and then stops and parks. Man, I'm trying to. Okay, let's try it this way. This black SUV parks, and then there's a driver, and then Posdnuos and Maceo, or was it Maceo? Maceo and Trugoy jump out. It was, am I saying that right? Yes, Trugoy and Maceo, they hop out. And so I go over and talk to him or whatever. I don't know where Posdnuos was at the time. So I go talk to him and whatever. And that was the last time I had actually you know, spoken to those guys. I had, and the show was incredible. It was bananas. But I have seen them after that, you know, a couple times. So yeah, that was the whole thing with De La Soul. You know, I first saw them in 1987. Once again, at a tour that LL Cool J was headlining. It was called the Nitro Tour. That was when his the Walking with the Panther album came out. And Big Daddy Kane, Slick Rick, EPMD, they were also on that tour. So that was pretty cool. So yeah, that's my whole De La Soul thing. Next question that was asked was George Clinton. How did I go about, you know, what was my dealings with George Clinton? Well, the year was either, I want to say 1997 Smoke and Grooves tour. If any of you guys remember that tour, that was, let's see, Erykah Badu, George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Stars, Cypress Hill, who else was on? Foxy Brown, and I believe, I want to say Tribe Called Quest was on, and Busta Rhymes. We're all on that tour. So me and my boy Pitt, Mr. Pitt. Pitt was a good buddy of mine. He passed away some years back. And Pitt and I, back in the 90s, we both had separate shows on a public access station. My show was more DJ related, me being a DJ, and his show was more rapper MC related, him being an MC. So we had got backstage passes for that show. Oh, the Brand New Heavies was on that show too. That's how we ended up getting backstage passes, through the Brand New Heavies, because they were on Delicious Vinyl, and Delicious Vinyl was doing business with a company called Red Ant. I don't know exactly what Red Ant exactly did, but I was doing business with Red Ant, promoting, you know, different artists. It's kind of confusing. Anyway, so we got backstage passes through the Brand New Heavies because we ended up interviewing them. We were trying to interview everybody. So we got to hang out with Erykah. That's a whole nother story. So after the show, because George Clinton went on last, so after the whole concert was over, everybody was hanging out backstage. Now, if you've ever been backstage at an amphitheater, you have the backstage area, and then, just like I said earlier, further back is like a big parking lot where usually all of the tour buses and whatnot pull up and unload and all of that stuff. So everybody was walking around back there, you know, everybody from the show. It was pretty crazy. And keep in mind, this is during a time when George Clinton, he was still like, man, it might as well been James Brown or Elvis Presley or Michael Jackson. That's how big he was. Well, he is to me. I mean, he's just a huge, you know, my older sister grew up, I remember as a kid, seeing all of the Parliament Funkadelic albums that she had in her collection. And so, you know, it was crazy just having access to George Clinton like that. Anyway, George Clinton had this road manager. She's a little tiny, little short lady. And I see Pitt, you know, my homeboy, talking to her. Now, when I see them, they're about maybe 30 feet away from me. But I see George like maybe 40, 50 feet away from me. Now, granted, there's like, I don't know, there's like 100 people back there all walking around. And I walk up to Pitt, and unfortunately I can't remember the woman's name, but all I hear is Pitt say to her, well, you know, it would be for his benefit. And then she says, I know, let me just go ask him. So she walks away and walks over to George, and I asked Pitt what's going on. He says, hey, I'm trying to interview George Clinton. Sorry, y'all, I'm trying to keep the sunlight out of the camera. So he says, I'm trying to interview George Clinton. So she goes and talks to George. She comes back over to us and she says, can you guys do it at the hotel at midnight? And we were like, heck yeah, we could do it at the hotel. It was me, my buddy Pitt, and my buddy Ben. So she tells us where we are. We're staying at a hotel way across town. Now, granted, this was George Clinton and the P-Funk All-Star. So he had a ton of people on stage with him that night. He must have had like 30, 40 people on stage with him. And so we eventually leave the show. We drive across town. I think it was a Hilton or something. And we get over there, and I'm expecting to see all kinds of tour buses and people walking around. And it was in a real nice part of town. This was in Milwaukee, by the way. My hometown in Milwaukee. So, but we get over there, it's quiet as a mouse, not one tour bus or anything. We're like, I'm like, wow, that's kind of weird. So we go in the lobby, quiet as a mouse. We go up to whatever floor they were on and get off the elevator. Not a peep. Go to the room, knock on the door, and the woman, his road manager, opens the door. She's like, come on in. So we walk in, and we've got like our camera equipment and all this with us. We walk in, and all the way on the other side of the room, George is sitting at a desk, and he's got a big, huge sketch pad, and the whole desk is just covered with markers, different colored markers, and he's just sitting there just drawing, and we were like, wow, okay, that's interesting. So we're getting set up and whatnot, and then George excuses himself, goes to the restroom for a minute, then he comes out, and then he's got this big duffel bag. It wasn't a big duffel bag, but he had like a moderately sized duffel bag, and he opens it up. Now, granted, he was still wearing the same hockey jersey that he wore at the show, well, at least after the show. And it was like, I don't know what team it was. It was red and white, big, huge hockey jersey. And he opens his duffel bag, and I kid you not, he had like 100 pairs of sunglasses in there. Now it's after midnight, and we're in a hotel room, and this guy's looking for sunglasses. Yeah, crazy, right? So he finally finds, I guess, the perfect pair for the occasion, and he takes them out and he just sticks them in his hair. He like sticks them up here. He doesn't even put them on. And he's like, okay, I'm ready. And we proceed to do the interview. Now, Pitt was actually the one who was actually interviewing him, and I was running the camera, and Ben was just there. So we interviewed him for about an hour at least. No, well, we were there a total of 2 hours, so most of that was us interviewing him. Well, Pitt was doing all of the talking, and yeah, that was pretty much it. We finished the interview, you know, said our goodbyes and left. And I still have all of that raw footage, but I have it on a Hi8 tape. And for those who know what a Hi8 tape is, it's very hard to find or come across a Hi8 player. So I can't yet share it. That footage was actually used for Pitt's show. You can see a little clip of that, and I'll put a link down below so you can check that out. But Pitt's show was called Mental Fitness Zon Other Level Pitt, and it was like hardcore hip-hop culture, you know, on his show. But if you go all the way to the end of that video clip, because it's about 45 minutes long, if you go all the way to the end, he shows a clip of what's going to appear on his next show, and then you'll see George Clinton sitting there talking. So that's a little piece of it. Until I can get my hands on a Hi8 player, or have it transferred, you can check that out in the meantime. But yeah, that was a fantastic, I couldn't believe it that I was, you know, hanging out with George Clinton, you know, person to person in his hotel room for 2 hours. It was crazy. I got him to autograph a couple records for me there. And then, so I met George 3 times. That was Milwaukee, 1997. The next time was after I moved moved here to Phoenix. And there used to be a record store here called Monkey Mambo. And I guess George was here for a concert, and they just put the word out that, hey, George Clinton is gonna, you know, be appearing at Monkey Mambo. So we go there. I don't even know if I went with anybody. I might have been by myself. But I went there with a couple records, and there's a big line of people waiting to see George. And, you know, after waiting there, I don't know, 20 minutes, some guy, I don't know who he was, if he was affiliated with the store, with the show, I'm not exactly sure, but pulls up in this old school lowrider type of car, some old school joint. And then George Clinton is in the passenger seat. And when he pulls up, everybody starts, you know, yelling and screaming and applauding. And George just sticks his hand out the window, and he does this to the whole crowd, like throws his hands up like that, and everybody's yelling and screaming. It was pretty cool. It was a cool entrance. And then, so that was like your average in-store, if you will. So, you know, he just set up and he was like signing autographs and whatnot. There were no camera phones back then, so it wasn't a whole lot of picture taking. Anyway, that was the second time. And then the third time was some years after that, and he was back in town here. doing a show, and he actually set up out in the lobby of the show before the show started. And he was just meeting fans, signing autographs, taking pictures. That was at a venue called the Marquee here in town. It was pretty cool. So those were the 3 times I met George Clinton. I've seen him a number of times over the years. Wow, just an incredible experience. So hopefully sooner than later I'll get that raw footage of that interview. You won't see me in there because I'm the guy holding the camera, but you'll see George, and that's all that matters. So yeah, now the next question I was asked was, tell me about your industry connections. Well, I wouldn't use that terminology. I don't have industry connections. I have been 50% lucky and 50% fortunate. Now, I have, I've been DJing for a long time. So just me being a DJ has given me access to a lot of celebrities that have come through town over the years. And that's half of it. So just people hitting me up, hey, can you, we want to book you to DJ this concert or whatever. And there were even a few promoters that would book, rap and R&B shows on a regular basis. And I became somewhat of the go-to guy for a few people here in town that was doing that. So I just, been lucky to hang out with a lot of celebrities over the years, and just been fortunate. I've enjoyed every minute of it. And then there were some shows, some concerts that I actually snuck into. I actually did a video about that. I'm gonna do some more videos about some of my shenanigans of sneaking into shows. But I did do one video that was talking about when I used to sneak into concerts. So some of the people I met that way too, just by sneaking into the show. When you're doing a show, like I said, we had public access shows, and so we were nobody, so we couldn't get in most of these shows. So we did everything we could to get access to these people, just so that we can interview them and have some footage, or what they call now content. It was a lot of that going on. And, as time went on and on, I was just, able to get close to a lot of these people and meet a lot of people that I really admired. On top of that, there was people that I just bumped into, here and there, had no idea I was gonna meet people. There were people that I actually DJ for. I'm gonna do a video on that, about some of the people that I've actually performed with over the years. And but yeah, I don't have any industry connections. It's not like I got a bunch of people in my phone I could just call them up and chat. There's a few people, but not a whole lot. And if I've spent a lot of time in New York. I've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. And if you spend a significant amount of time in them places, and you go to certain parties, certain shows or whatever, you're gonna bump into all kinds of famous people, all kinds of legends. Man, it's crazy. If you I have a blog. It's called The Great Adventures of Daryl D, and it's just all pictures um, that I've documented of people that I've actually met. If you go on there and you look through that stuff, you'll see a whole lot of people, that I've hung out with over the years, simply because I just happen to be there. And I don't have any more access to these people than anybody else. Anybody can go to these shows, to these parties, to these clubs, and sometimes it gets crazy when you can go to Toka Tuesdays in New York or Mobile Mondays, and the place is full of celebrities as well as just patrons in there dancing and drinking and hanging out or whatever, or hanging out at B Swap Meet in LA, and there's all of these West Coast legends hanging out at VIP Records in Long Beach and seeing different West Coast MCs just walk in the store and chopping it up with Kelvin, the owner, in there. And this is stuff that anybody can do. You want to meet some famous people, you got to hang out in some of these bigger cities, and you're like almost guaranteed to bump elbows with some people that you probably dig. So nope, no industry connections or anything like that. I'm just a nobody who's been fortunate and sometimes lucky to be around some real cool entertainers. Whoa, I just dropped my little notes here. So one more question. A lot of videos I shoot, they're in my record room, and there's usually a wall of records behind me, and I had someone ask me, have I always kept my records in milk crates? And the answer to that question is yes. I have always kept my records in milk crates. There was a time when everyone kept their records in milk crates, like everybody. But when the IKEA shelves came out on the market, everybody just went buck wild for them, and that's what most record collectors still have to this day. So I was never into the IKEA shelves like that, because I just looked at them as being another piece of furniture, and I would have to buy a bunch of those things to actually house all of my vinyl, and that's just no way I was gonna go out. And it's not like those things just fit perfectly. If you buy one or you buy two, that's one thing. But if you have to keep buying them as your collection grows, you're gonna run out of room real quick because they take up so much space. While at the same time, record crates are very mobile. You can adjust them, move them around, move them here and there real easily, from one bedroom to another room or basement to the upstairs, or however you're gonna do it. So, and then I just like the rawness of the milk crates, what they have always represented, outside of milk. But I've always just, they're easy to manage for me. I could understand if people buy them and they actually buy them as a piece of furniture and they kind of add it to their decor. But nah, that's a little too grown up for me. I'm trying to maintain being a grown kid, if that makes any sense. So yes, I've always kept my vinyl in milk crates. That'll probably always be the case. Times that I've had to move, it's just 100 times easier than finding a bunch of boxes, packing them up, moving all of the boxes, and then moving the actual furniture. You know, I have like 120 crates, and I've moved all of them by myself more than once. It's no picnic. Let me choose a different word. It's not any fun, but it's a lot more practical than if I had the IKEA cases. So that's that with the milk crates. So I'm going to stop it there with the questions and answers. I appreciate, you know, everybody that have messaged me or left a comment or, you know, asking me different things. There's a lot more questions to answer, and so I'll be making more videos like this. But I just wanted to address a few things real quick since I was out on this beautiful hike in the desert. And until next time, you guys be safe. Thank you for tuning in to Daryl D TV, and I'll see you later. Peace and love.